Hello, good morning and welcome to OTB AM. A very happy Friday morning to you. I hope you're keeping safe out there in the middle of this Snowmageddon. It's definitely just a coincidence that I'm wearing the same shirt as yesterday. We definitely didn't record this on a Thursday, and we definitely saw the results for Arsenal last night, which was certainly a result, Nathan.
Oh, more shame for Arsenal, Owen. Wow. What character shown by Arsenal to overturn that 3-0 defeat last weekend and to go and beat Manchester City. Oh, that wasn't a very exciting game at all. 0-0. Who could have predicted?
Oh.
Edit where appropriate.
Such a shame that game was called off last night.
Damn it. Hadn't taken that into account.
Yeah. Where are you this weekend?
I am in Brighton, which, while usually you would associate Brighton down by the seaside, south of England, beautiful part of the country, seems to have been hit pretty badly by Snowmageddon.
Yeah.
They have snow on the beachfront at Brighton.
Right,
so I'm
okay.
unsure if we're going to make it.
Yeah, that's a bit of a worry. It's the
Brighton
flight.
against Arsenal. Whew! Arsenal after... never mind.
It's all about momentum for Arsenal this weekend.
It certainly is, yeah.
They've got to build on the results. They've got to bounce back. Edit where appropriate. So when it comes to Brighton, you're going to get a flight over.
A flight to Gatwick.
To Gatwick.
Have you been to Brighton?
I've never been to Brighton.
Oh, Brighton now be your kind of town.
Why? Why would it
That's
be
a
my
town
kind
for
of-
young people.
Okay.
I've only ever been to Brighton once, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and all I thought was, I'd love to come back here. I'd say Saturday night now in Brighton to be.
And what's so good about it? It's kind of like Blackpool
it's
by
like,
the sea.
But Blackpool is also by the sea.
But no, that's what I mean. As in, like, just got that kind of seaside.
I would say,
vibe,
my sense of it is, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who have been and lived in Brighton and everything will know a lot better. It's sort of like the Galway of England.
Okay.
It's got a lot of pubs, a lot of coffee shops, a lot of nightclubs.
Yeah.
Just a fun kind of town.
Right. Okay. It sounds good. But
By the sea.
it sounds like you could have an extra night there as well. You could get snowed in Brighton.
Oh, may not get home until Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That was definitely an accident there. The weather seems fine in Brighton. Yeah. Sorry. No. This little patch is terrible.
Trains and buses just not working. It's shocking.
Yeah. That's one of two games live.
I did once get stuck. I think I've only ever got stuck in England once with the snow.
What happened? That was a couple of weeks ago, no? Oh, no, that was a different occasion you got stuck in England.
Did I get stuck in England?
Remember, you said that you almost missed your flight.
Oh, I nearly missed my flight from Southampton.
Okay,
but I managed to make it, thankfully, just in time. I was at a Liverpool-Chelsea match about 5-6 years ago. Fernando Torres was playing. I think he scored twice in the last 2 minutes of the game. And just as the game was finishing, you could sort of get a few little flickers of snow coming down. I thought, wasn't expecting this. 4 days later, when I'm still in the Travelodge in Manchester, I realised, there was quite a downfall predicted.
Who's on co-com with you on Sunday?
Gary Breen.
Gary Breen, Nathan
Nothing
Murphy.
will stop Gary Breen. Trust me, he will be there.
Excellent analyst as well. It's the dream team at Brighton versus Arsenal, and the B team is Dave and somebody at City. Kev and Dave. Sorry, at City versus Chelsea on Sunday, the game of the weekend, other than Brighton Arsenal, of course. And again, when it comes to Manchester City, wow, all about momentum when it comes to them after last night's event.
Could they collapse?
Could they? Could they build on whatever happened last night, potentially? The sickening blow that might have been caused by a cancellation or might have been caused by a defeat, or maybe the momentum that they'll now have to build on.
It's a real shame that Arsenal haven't actually done anything this season and aren't contending, because if it was called off, we could have that brilliant situation whereby there'd be no space in the calendar for it and they'd have to push it till right at the end of the season. Yeah,
that would be class. It is a shame. We do have Kevin Kilbane on this morning's show at a certain point. He's going to be up out of bed any moment now. We're sure of that. We're very, very confident.
The bizarre thing about this is it's midday almost on Thursday when we're recording this. So when Kevin does it live on a Friday morning, he's generally not out of bed. And even still doing it in the middle of the afternoon on a Thursday, he's still not out of bed.
Still not out of bed. It's reckless. So we're going to chat to him generally about Arsenal, because there's a lot of themes that have been going through this week, regardless of any sort of results. The likes of Mertesacker's little unit that he set up this week. Thierry Henry being linked to the Barcelona chairman, saying that he could potentially be next in line for the Arsenal managerial role, which is interesting. If you want to get in touch, you can. It's a bit of an echo chamber this morning, but you can comment on the stream below, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, or tweet us, of course, at Off The Ball.
You can talk amongst yourself.
Yeah.
So if you comment, somebody can reply to your comment. You can have a little conversation and give your thoughts.
Start a debate. Chat amongst yourselves for now. To be honest, I don't know where I am while you're watching this, but probably snowed in somewhere.
I suspect you're in bed.
Yeah, I would imagine. I'd like to think so. Body clock's going well at the moment, though. But we'll bring further updates on that as things develop. But we are going to start with Arsenal, as I say. Crisis talks this week. We'll get Kev's thoughts in just a moment. But it seems like this is the first moment that there's been a little cohort of players within the Arsenal camp that have kind of, I don't know, gone behind Wenger's back. We don't know the ins and outs of this, but certainly there seems to be a little group of players led by Per Mertesacker who want change. We don't know the specifics of the change, but we do know that there's kind of like a bit of a movement going on in the club, which we rarely see at Arsenal.
The fact Mertesacker's involved is surprising in a way, because he's retiring at the end of the season and he's been guaranteed a job with the club's academy, presumably by Arsene Wenger. So unless, and maybe actually that's an even stronger point then, that he, even with that, he's looking long term, thinking, do I want to be with this club, even in an academy setup, if Arsene Wenger is still the man who leads the way? A lot seems to have changed in the last week at Arsenal. It's the first time really we've seen the newspapers go with stories of replacements, of the ownership and them actually thinking seriously about whether we want Arsene Wenger to continue, drawing up something of a shortlist. That's never really happened before. It's more been just pundits talking, if Wenger was to go, who might it be, rather than actually journalists with a good bit of insight. And you do seem to get a lot of stuff out of Arsenal saying, no, they're starting to really, really have doubts.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like a pipe dream for the Wenger out brigade that this thing would happen. It's been like, they should get X and Y. They haven't actually put as much thought. There was no necessary thought, basically, over the last couple of years, whereas this week, people have started to critically think and be like, right, this guy would work because of X and Y or whatever. And it also seems to me that there's now an acceptance among the former Invincibles, or not even the Invincibles, the Ian Wright era even, that it's acceptable to criticise Arsene Wenger now, because there was a time there going back 7 or 8 years ago where nobody was really saying anything too cutting about Wenger, any of his former players, whereas now all bets are off and they're all criticising him.
Yeah, and I, like a lot of people, I think, I definitely have quite a bit of sympathy for Arsene Wenger, and maybe there's a little bit of nostalgia, and you think of what a great man he was and what a great coach he was. And also I think part of it is this Arsenal fan TV nonsense, which has just gone so far the other way, where it seems to be totally acceptable to say whatever you want about whoever you want and there to be no repercussions, that you kind of go, wait a second, are we going to go with this mob mentality of Arsenal supporters losing their rags, so suddenly we all have to get past this? But then you have to go back to performances after performances after performances. And I think it was Arseblog who put up the last 3-4 years alone some of the shocking results that Arsenal have had from bad beatings they've taken. And I had a look at this last year because it does seem as though Arsenal take more bad beatings than other teams, and I think it was like 7 or 8 times since 2010 they'd lost by 5 goals or more, whereas you compare to all the other top 5 or 6 who it might have happened to once. So there is something within their psyche with Wenger that suggests, time is up. I just hope he goes somewhat on his terms, but maybe that time has passed. Yeah,
you'd like to hope so, and you're probably right on that second point as well. Kevin Kilbane, a very good morning to you. How are things? Yeah, you can't hear us there, Kev, no?
Yeah, I've got you.
Oh,
I can hear you well.
There. Just a bit of a delay, obviously. You must be snowed in heavily there this morning.
snowed in up in Kilbane, and that's what it is. Oh, and you know how it is.
It's almost like Christmas out there, isn't it? It's like March and the snow's coming down. You're like, why didn't we get this 3 months ago when it was actually Christmas time? Although
I know, I'm trying to plan my route back into the UK for this weekend, actually, because I'm due at Burnley tomorrow morning and I'm due at Man City on Sunday. So I'm trying to get back in over the weekend. So it's just a bit manic at the moment, trying to get flights look like they're going to be cancelled. So I'm trying to get maybe the ferry for later on today.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, but I guess we should all get into the festive spirit again. Why not? Why not put on a Christmas jumper once again? Although maybe, Kev, the last time you put on a Christmas jumper, things didn't turn out too well.
Is that right? Yeah, you've got a good memory, Owen. That's what it is. Yeah, I think we'll leave that one go.
Yes, I don't know where I'm getting that from. Actually, I think that's a load of nonsense. Actually, on my part, they're completely fine. So we're going to chat a little bit about Arsenal. We're going to chat a little bit about Manchester City. We're also going to touch on this idea of pundits and managers, because I'm not sure if you've seen this week the current Barcelona chairman Laporta talking about Thierry Henry potentially being linked to the Arsenal managerial job because he gave a chance to Pep. And it seems to me, Kev, comparing Thierry Henry and Pep Guardiola isn't exactly a like-for-like comparison.
It's hardly a like-for-like comparison. You look at Thierry Henry's had absolutely no credible job at the moment, has he? Or no certainly coaching job. He's worked with the Belgian squad for a short while. He was in Arsenal's academy for a very, very short while as well before he left. I think he was working with the under-14s, I think, at one stage. So, Yeah, most definitely. You can't even compare them. It's like chalk and cheese at the moment.
Sorry, Kevin, just on that. You're saying Thierry Henry doesn't have a credible job. So
no, I'm talking from an actual coaching a team, and I would always say as well, it's something that I would always stress when we spoke about people looking to take jobs and step up the ladder. You have to take your own individual side. Now, whatever level that is, you need to take a team for a year at the very least before you can actually start to, and I'm talking like under 15s, under 16s, 17s, 18s, whatever that would be. You need to actually coach that 1 to 11, that 1 to 18. You need to take a side. Now, he's got an assistant coaching job. What he does within the realms of that coaching job, I'm not too sure, but I doubt very much that with Roberto Martinez and the Belgian side, I doubt very much he's out on the coaching field taking the 1 to 11 on a regular basis. I'd say if ever, I think he'd probably do individual work with players, probably working on striking roles and things like that, and that's part of his development. But he's probably, from an Arsenal job, he's probably 8-10 years away from an Arsenal job at the moment, I would suggest, because simply he's not necessarily taking a side. He hasn't taken a team yet. So as soon as he starts taking a side, that's when you can start to put him in the bracket of maybe an Arsenal job.
I'd probably agree with you there on the Belgium thing for sure, that it doesn't provide the necessary experience to manage a club, because first of all it's a completely different level, and second of all it's a different position. He's in an assistant role obviously in Belgium, but in that assistant role I wonder, does that say something about Thierry Henry's willingness to learn, that he's got no ego, that he was willing to accept the assistant managerial role, and he does have this yearning to actually kind of develop himself as a coach? Or am I reading just too much into that?
Well, no, you forget he's the assistant of the assistant. Graham Jones is Roberto Martinez's assistant, so he's got an assistant role within the coaching setup. So he's there basically, as you said, maybe to learn. Yet credit him; it's a great role for him that he can actually learn. He can listen to what Martinez and what Jones, because they've both got great experience. He can listen to what they're saying, but he's way off it at the moment. That's what I definitely would say.
It's sort of come down, I think, to, as you touched it there, we're judging him on his punditry, where actually, as Kevin says, it's his lack of experience that should rule him out of even being in the conversation for the Arsenal job. Whereas I think a lot of the initial reaction is, well, he's terrible in Sky. What could he offer? What sort of insight could he offer? We're actually, like, is there any direct correlation between being a good pundit and being a good manager?
Well, Gary Neville disproves that, didn't he?
Well, exactly. So,
yeah, I think, do you know what I would say as well? I think it's quite harsh even that we judge Gary Neville as a manager. We're judging him on the top of the job that he took at Valencia. It was far too soon for him. I go back to the point, it'd be the same for Thierry Henry or anyone stepping into that type of job straight away. You need to have a team. You've got to have, and again, go back to stress the point. I think you look at Steven Gerrard now, what he's doing. He's taking a side. He's taking the 18 side. He's actually now coaching a team as an 11, as I said, as a squad on the training ground day in, day out. You can't then step. Steven Gerrard would probably know himself to say, I could never step into the Liverpool job to shit. I need 2, 3, 4, 5 years experience, whatever it's going to be, before I can take that job. And he needs good people around him as well to do that. That's why Gary Neville probably took it, but he did. It was maybe the self-belief, yes, of course, maybe slight arrogance as well, to suggest that I could go in and take that job and do it as someone like Pep Guardiola or someone who else, the names that you've mentioned there, could do. He's simply too far behind, and that's why he's now tarnished. And he could still do it, Gary Neville, without a doubt, but he would certainly need 3 or 4 years' experience of coaching teams at underage level.
And there's no great glory in that. There's no great glory in what Steven Gerrard is doing, which is actually getting up at 7 o'clock every morning and going in and setting up a session for under-18s. And when we're talking about Thierry Henry as potentially a next Arsenal manager, surely the guy we should probably be looking at, if it's a former player, is somebody like Robert Pires, who actually is involved in the coaching setup, who's there day to day getting involved. It's sort of like the conversation we have with Ireland at time to time, when, you know, who should come in and take over the underage setup and who should have this vision for Irish football. And we often talk in terms of the big names, whereas, like, Lee Carsley is the person who we should be talking about, who's going about his business quietly, working in the academies, learning. But because he's not on TV every week telling anybody about this, it sort of gets forgotten about.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, when you think about that, like, suppose, say if Carsley got a senior managerial role now, and when it comes to Neville as well, and there is an element of having to be thrown into the deep end in that first role, you can build yourself up with an experience, but you do have to get that first role in that respect. So there is a huge chance of failure in your first managerial role. And I know we've spoken about it on the show before, but it's worth reiterating, Kev, that a failure can sometimes strengthen a CV.
Yeah, without a doubt, that's true. I mean, I know Lee extremely well. Lee and I would be very close. Lee's turned down several first-team managerial roles because he believes that his path is about trying to learn from the grassroots up or underage level up. He's had many jobs now within youth football, youth structure at Coventry, at Brentford. He's taken first-team roles, first-team duties at Coventry, Brentford and Birmingham as well. And now, of course, he's involved with the England under-21s. But he feels as though that he needs years ahead of him at learning the ropes, so to speak. So that's where he is right now. But I mean, you'd be right in saying there, sometimes as well, if you take a job early and you have that failure, I remember going back to Gary Neville, it was such a high-profile job for him to take on. He did fail, but I would suggest that even if he stepped back into a managerial role further down the line, he'd probably learn more from that failure, what happened there at Valencia, because you know full well how to deal with certain people within a club structure. It's not necessarily now about the team on the pitches, and you hear that this saying said so often now. It is about managing up. It's about managing the boardroom as much as it's about managing the team on the field and expectations.
Definitely. What's the most transferable skill from punditry to coaching? What's the biggest thing, say, a Thierry Henry could take from his time in Sky into a top-level managerial role, if anything? You know what? It is a great question from that. You know what? It's something. I mean, I was coaching at under 23 level. I can only maybe use my limited experience in coaching. I had the whole reserve side for a season, or certainly 3/4 of a season. And what I could take from punditry, certainly watching players, certainly getting a knowledge of how teams work and systems and that. But I think the intricacies of day-to-day football, Nathan's touched on something there which is spot on. Getting up at 7 o'clock every single morning, setting up sessions. You're on your own, essentially. That's how you do it. And you've got a lot of travelling to do. You've got to go and watch a lot of games. And I think the only thing that punditry can help you with is actually watching the players themselves. But other than that, I think there's very little that can actually prepare you for what it's like for actually a coach in the managerial role.
What was the Kevin Kilbane philosophy for the Hull under-23 side?
It's not philosophy, Nathan. I don't use those terms. It was certainly enjoyment. That was my philosophy. Enjoy day to day. Enjoy life, Nathan.
Did you go in with an envelope at any stage and 3 of you guys are going to let me down? Your names are in here.
Well, you know that none of that crap's for me. You know that. So I was I'm genuinely what I did. I tried to make. I think certainly at that age, when they are, I had lads from 16. Usually probably till about 19, 20. That was my general age group between that 4 years. It was actually under 21s at the time. I say under 23. It was actually under 21s at the time when I had the job. So it was more about trying to educate them positionally, whichever position they were playing in. Try to talk to them one-on-ones, little bits of video analysis, because there was limited video analysis that a reserve team game would have had. So you're trying to then maybe take them as a group, take them for the 11 that would have started a certain game, try to help them out positional sense, then try to work with them on the training ground on how to develop them technically. That was basically what I was trying to do up there. I didn't get long enough in the role where I could have any sort of significant outcome further down the line. But I would, at the time where I was, the position I wanted, the place I was in my life, I would have loved to continue it. But then Nick Barmby gets sacked, and that just shows how precarious any role within a football club is. If a manager goes and you're part of his coaching setup or part of his coaching staff, the rest of the staff would leave with him. So I didn't really get the chance to continue it.
Oh, sliding doors and all that. Here you are now, talking to us from your kitchen on a Friday morning in Dublin. He's not happy with that at all.
that did not go down well.
That did not go down well at all. Do you think the... can you actually hear us? That's absolutely blank.
I didn't hear that joke.
Was it your joke?
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it. That's okay. Do you think actually the last few days have sort of reinforced why Arsenal stand by Arsene Wenger when you look at some of the names that are linked, and almost instantly the outcry and the outrage that Brendan Rodgers could even be on a shortlist for the Arsenal job?
Let's call a spade here. You're not talking about some of the names. You're talking about Brendan Rodgers.
I'm talking about Brendan Rodgers. But even then, without Brendan, they're obviously going to look. You can look at what happened with Alex Ferguson and Manchester United and the way they declined so quickly when nobody expected it. Everyone thought at the very least David Moyes would be a safe pair of hands and keep getting them Champions League football at the very least. That didn't happen. It was a pretty rapid decline. And there's not that many managers out there who you think are a automatic fit. There's no way of knowing who is going to be an automatic fit, who's going to come in and is going to want the same players, that isn't going to go and want to spend 250 million quid during the summer. Like, the person I would like to see go in is maybe someone like Diego Simeone.
Yeah.
But again, Simeone's probably a 3-4 year plan of suddenly instilling a very different style, a more defensive style of football, which they really don't have the players for right now. So are you looking for an Arsene Wenger Mark II? And in that case, well, why not just stick with Arsene Wenger and save yourself a whole lot of money?
Yeah, well, Arsene Wenger Mark II is a very different person to Arsene Wenger Mark I, because Arsene Wenger Mark I has been created in the petri dish of the 90s, where kind of those radical ideas are not so radical anymore.
They probably saved themselves have a lot of money anyway, because the wages that any manager went in would certainly be not on the level of Arsene Wenger as it would be. So whenever Wenger does decide to leave, you've probably got a manager on, I don't know, I wouldn't want to say half, but it certainly wouldn't be of the level that Wenger's at, because Wenger's wages are as high as anyone in world football.
Yeah. You obviously would have come up against Henry a few times anyway, Kev. Like, you've spoken about a certain former Arsenal player, not so fondly before, in Tadhg Furlong. Thierry Henry kind of strikes me as the type of person who wouldn't share those sort of traits of looking down on opposition team players.
He's teeing him up today, isn't he? Honestly, no, it was wonderful, wasn't he? I think we all accept that, as much the same as Fabregas. Fabregas was excellent footballer. So's Henry.
Henry was a different level to Fabregas, though, wasn't he? Because it's the one thing you hear from, especially defenders, like when Kenny Cunningham's on. Henry is the one guy he always comes back to that was pretty much unmarkable when he was at his best.
Yeah. Well, it was. I always used to remember team meetings around Henry when you were talking about how to stop Arsenal and how to stop certain players, and you'd have Henry, and you would be probably spending a majority of that meeting talking about Henry rather than the collective Arsenal 1 to 11. It was about Henry. How do you stop him? What plan have you got in place? Perhaps you were talking about a holding midfielder to try to, because Henry invariably would always, you know yourself, like he would always try to creep over to the inside left channel, much the same position you would see an Eden Hazard pick the ball up now. And you would maybe have a defensive midfield player that you'd be talking to try to get close to Henry. So automatically you're telling that defensive midfield player to do a job and play in a position that he's uncomfortable with. So it kind of disrupted your whole game plan. And then Arsenal, with the qualities they had throughout that side, that's when he started to flourish, because you would try to make exception for him. He genuinely was world class, wasn't he? I think we all know that. One of the best that I would have played against, without a doubt.
What about as a man? What's he like?
I don't really know him, Owen, and that's the truth. I really don't know him. I mean, Nathan's there with a big smile on his face, big happy head in him. But
talk about looking for a bit of gossip. As a man, Kevin, as a man,
I really don't know
about Thierry Henry.
Playing, I've told you before, playing against all those Arsenal players, I felt the demise of that club is of Arsenal over the last 15, 20 years, or whatever it is, 15 years. As I've always felt it's been in keeping with how those players, how they used to react to opposition on the pitch. I always felt that as a team, as a club, it was quite arrogant. And that's how I felt with Arsenal. I felt as though there was no discipline throughout that side. And it had gone from me growing up to looking at Arsenal as a football club with real high esteem and look at them and thinking, this is the ultimate club. This is the class football club. And I never felt it when I played against them. I just felt as though that they were, if they ever lost games and you'd see them on the pitch, they were sore losers, but in a way that it would always turn into something more sinister and more nasty. Of course, we're all bad losers at times, but I just felt that's the way it went with Arsenal. I just felt as though that Arsenal had lost that touch of class over the years, and now we've got to the stage under Wenger now where we're criticising him, we're criticising his reign, and can we think back to Wenger 15 years ago to actually how he was? That decline has been in place for a number of years now. Even when I used to play against him in the early 2000s, I mean, a lot of the players like the Ray Parlers and the Petites, the Eras, and all these lads that you felt as though they were class players, but also class blokes. Arsenal have gone away from that now, and that's ultimately why they are, I feel, in the position they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move on. We're going to preview the weekend's matches and the games live and off the ball and News Talk in a couple of moments. But we just want to get your thoughts really on a couple of snow moments this week. I wanted to get your take on this video from taken during the week from Peterborough United. Stephen Taylor clearing the snow here earlier on with a brush, taking it upon himself to get this game finished. They were 2-1 up at the time. And first thing I think right there, Kev, former Sunderland player, obviously Taylor, former Newcastle player, are the Northerners just that little bit tougher? Snow means nothing to them?
Yeah, that would have been a regular thing for us when we were kids, having to get snow off the pitch. That was our job when we were first coming into professional football, certainly into full-time football as a YT. If there was ever snow on the pitch on a match day when I was at Preston, we were the ones that were called in at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. We were out with the shovel, trying to get everything off the pitch, trying to get the pitch prepared. So he's probably of that ilk, I suppose, as well, that he's maybe a little bit younger. He wouldn't necessarily have had to do that himself, but he certainly would have had some sort of responsibility when he was up there coming through the system at Newcastle, yeah.
Is he curling?
Looks like it.
Looks like he's practicing his curling.
Yeah, he could do a job for Team GB.
I say, Nath, are we still on for Sunday? Is the game still on? When are we going to find this out?
Well, right now the games are on. You're at the Etihad, so again, I guess all the pitches will be fine. It's whether or not the conditions around the stadiums are okay. I'm assuming by Sunday the worst of it is going to be over. Well, all the indications are that the games are going to go on, unless this terrible storm that's happening right now on this Friday morning is probably a little bit worse than everyone expects. But right now I'm intending to go to Brighton.
Good man. No, I'm just saying that just for the weekend. There's no indication in the Premier League as to when they'll make a decision on this one. They're just going to let it go at the moment to say maybe the morning of the match. Is that how it is?
Yeah, I'd imagine so, that it'll depend on every ground as to just how serious it is. You'd imagine some of the, I think pitch-wise there won't be any major issues, but it is just those surroundings, and maybe some of the clubs are a bit more proactive and get on top of this and it's a bit easier for them, whereas you'd wonder places up northeast, Newcastle, places like that, where it might be a little bit more difficult. But as I said, Brighton actually at the moment looked like one of the worst situations, so yeah, I think we'll probably have to wait until Saturday morning, Sunday morning before we know.
Yeah, for sure. Kev, you're at Manchester City against Chelsea on Sunday. Just a quick one on Vincent Kompany, because it seems that the trendy take at the start of the season was to say that Vincent Kompany maybe was never a good defender, that he was good with, good midfielders in front of him and he couldn't play with the football at his feet.
Who said that, Owen?
But it was a trendy take, that's all I'm saying. And maybe I might have bought into it a little bit myself.
It's not a take. Who said it? I want to know who said that. If you're making statements like that, I'd like to know who said that.
Well, let's just say I said that. Okay. I bought into that trendy take.
That's just utter nonsense. Whoever suggested that are talking absolute rubbish.
I believe the hype, but it's clearly not true. It's blatantly not true, and I would contend that there were. I would say that there were actual criticisms around him as a ball player, and the Roberto Mancini era, it seems like decades ago in comparison to the way Pep Guardiola plays football, despite the fact that Mancini's football was quite good. But as a defender, it seems like light years away. And for somebody like Vincent Kompany to make that transition and to prove himself despite all the injuries and I guess despite some of his limitations as a ball player, you could say that Mangala, John Stones are better ball players than him. He still comes strong, and he's proved his fitness, and he's proved that he is one of the great modern defenders in the world.
I wouldn't say Mangala's a better ball player than Kompany, to be honest with you, but I would certainly say John Stones most definitely is. Yeah, probably Laporte is, even Otamendi I'd probably feel as well. But it just goes to show that you've got, when you look at Man City, when you're watching them, Otamendi, John Stones, and even Laporte, when I've seen Man City over the last few weeks, they're very quiet, they're not very vocal. When you watch Man City when Kompany's playing, he's organising the whole 11 when he's on the pitch. So that's the one thing that you're taking away from Man City straight away when Kompany's not in the side. His leadership, his ability to maybe sense danger and dictate to others that their own positional sense. That's, I would always feel, worth its weight in gold. That's ultimately like that could be like an extra player on the pitch, or certainly an extra pair of eyes. He's almost like a coach on the pitch when he's playing. On the ball, I certainly would agree that he's not as good at stepping in. He's certainly not that player that's able to start attacks for City as maybe one or two of the other defenders are. But I think certainly from a positional point of view, his ability to read situations, his ability again to drive others on, I think he is still the best there within that side. But it is still that we'll always ask the question of him: can he play 30, 40 games continuously, and that's the one thing with his injury record. We'll probably always fall a little bit short now.
You don't buy into the idea that there was anything other than fitness questions around Kompany, no?
No, I don't think so at all. Why? What else? What have you heard?
The things that I've outlined there, that he potentially was a great Roberto Mancini defender, not a great Pep Guardiola defender. I've changed my view on that. I'll admit.
Look, all I would say as well. One name, Carlos. Not Carlos Puel. What's his name?
Gerard Piqué?
Barcelona. No, the other lad at Barcelona.
Puyol.
Yeah, what's his first name?
Puyol.
Carlos Puyol. I was thinking of Puel. Anyway, yeah, no, but he was your one. He wasn't necessarily great on the ball, and he got the best out of his ability. And the talk was when Guardiola first took over at Barcelona, he hated his style. He was the sort of player that liked to put it in the stand, get his team reorganised, get set up, and he learnt and he developed under Guardiola. So he's exactly the same as that.
Fair enough.
What does Guardiola do though? Because they're heading into the quarterfinals of the Champions League, where they could end up playing Real Madrid, or they could end up playing one of the other leading Premier League teams. But if you can't trust that Kompany is going to be fit, so you could spend 2-3 weeks preparing a game plan for getting up against Barcelona or Real Madrid, and then 2 days before the game, he's ruled out injured and you have to start all over again, or do you just have to take that risk with him?
Do you know what, Nate? I think he's the way I believe that he does work on the training ground, when he's working on team shape and on the development of his team, he's working with the whole 22 players. So it's basically dropping players in and out of the sessions as he's going along. So
he's not someone who has his 11 and that's it.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, exactly. If he's got we all know. I mean, he's had to change his defenders. That's the way it's had to be with him anyway. He's changing the fullbacks continuously. So he's not necessarily got one set of 11 players with 3 or 4 different game plans. In general, his game plan tends to be the same, unless he's working on different intricacies within the system of the team that he's going to be playing against. In general, the centre halves from Man City will do exactly the same role, whichever one of those 4 players will be in the side. So I don't necessarily see that being a problem. They will all know the role, whichever they're asked to do.
Are we still doing what's inside Kevin's fridge?
There's no, we're not going downstairs in here. We're not back in Manchester today, so we can't be having that what's inside Kevin's fridge. Honestly, this is Barry Bant. We're not having a bit of Barry Bant today. Sorry about that.
We try our best to get to that level, but it seems like you're in emergency accommodation there, Kev.
Does it really?
There's a comment card over your shoulder.
Temporary accommodation.
Before we wrap up, it would be a miss of me not to get a quick Mayo gauge off the two of you while you're there. Obviously disappointment last Saturday, but sure, it's only the league, lads. I can confirm it is indeed only the league.
Kerry supporters, you've become a right pain in the hole, to put it mildly.
That hurts.
This nonsense that you've been coming out with, just because you go to a few games, because you're one of the 10 Kerry supporters who travels around the country, you suddenly think you can have a comment about everybody else and all the other supporters. And
I made no comment about the Mayo fans.
You don't worry about Mayo at all.
Whoa! You did make comments about the Mayo fans the other week.
Oh, I did the other week, but not this morning.
Pardon?
I didn't make any comments about them this morning. You know how much
last week
you had a lot to say. Say that again. Sorry.
I said last week you had a lot to say, or the other week you had a lot to say.
Yeah, I've said my bit, Kev. I'm not going to go into it in any further detail.
Mayo were missing from 1 to 10 that started last year's All-Ireland final. Mayo were missing 9 of them last weekend against Dublin and still kept them to 4 points and missed quite a few opportunities. This is obviously, if it goes ahead, a big game against Kildare. Win it, Mayo probably safe. Lose it, suddenly the last couple of weeks are going to be a bit of stress and a bit of pressure on Stephen Rochford. And as we've touched on before, I think any pressure or stress he's under is just absolute nonsense. Yeah. From Mayo's point of view, it is the league. Chill out, everybody. Yeah. It'll be fine.
You share that view, Kev?
Correct. I echo those sentiments exactly the same. I feel exactly the same way, yeah.
Well, good stuff. Best of luck for the rest of the league. Hopefully you stay in Division 1. Sure, Division 1 will be nothing unless I can get into arguments with Mayo fans.
No, quite literally. Division 1 would be a lesser place without Mayo. I would say the average attendance would fall. I'd say it would be halved if Mayo weren't there.
So you're the best fans in the world.
Yes.
Okay. Each to their own. Kev, thank you very much. Stay safe out there.
Cheers, lad. All the best.
Kevin Kilbane there. So we must reiterate, City versus Chelsea and Brighton versus
Arsenal. Cheers, Joel. Cheers, mate.
Currently slated to go ahead this weekend. They're live on Off the Ball. on these. They're finally gone, yeah, saying goodbye to the production staff out there. But it's good to see behind the curtain.
Still nice guy off camera as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's not kind of Ross Kemp on Extras, kind of where it's just a complete shift in personality, where he's like all nicey on air, and then
one of those.
Well,
we have a few of them around here as well. But
yeah, a few of them. We won't name names. Waits for Nathan to name a name.
That's fine. That's fine.
As I say,
so are we sure Crow Park Saturday night?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't. There is going to be no GAA this weekend. I realise we probably.
Here's a bet for you. Do you think people will be at a GAA ground this weekend, and the game will then be called off?
I doubt it. I think it'll be a blanket kind of calling off of games.
Okay.
That's the only thing that makes sense. But they said Friday, so you may or may not be waking up to news about these games being called off. Hopefully, that it should have been called off earlier in the week, all these games. But anyway, that's much of a muchness. Again, City, Chelsea, Brighton, Arsenal, live and off the ball this Sunday. Nathan, do you have any final thoughts?
No. Well done on.
Thank you. Enjoy Brighton.
You're not doing a baryometer?
No, I couldn't dare even try and venture in that direction.
Imagine. All right, fair enough.
Thank you. As I say, safe flight. Hopefully you get some good action in Brighton.
You don't seem fully convinced by this at all.
I don't really know. It's like, it basically sounds a little bit like...
I've been to Brighton twice already this season. I think they were the worst 2 matches I've covered so far this season.
0-0
was it a 1-1 against Southampton, possibly? Yeah, they weren't great, whatever they were.
Right, okay.
I can't even remember, which is not a good sign.
We might get your take on that afterwards. Good luck in the mix zone, actually, this week. After your faux pas... Well, not a faux pas. You just got...
faux pas? I'm standing there waiting.
Dissed by Jesse Lingard and Marcus Rashford, is it?
Yeah, top bants from those guys. I don't understand it. Jesse Lingard's just scored the winner. Be happy. Come out and have a chat.
Kind of like... What happened? They walked past you and then...
They walked past and then they literally had a fight so that neither of them would have to talk to me.
Was that just you standing there?
No, there was more people further down along.
Okay.
So it wasn't just me they were ignoring.
It would have been lovely.
I was the first person in line, though. Yeah. So maybe it was me who put them off. No, Brighton will be fine. Chris Hughton's a very nice man. Shane Duffy might talk to us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, the things that will be coming up on Monday morning.
Oh, can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. Safe flight. And that's where we're going to leave the football chat for this morning anyway. We're going to bring you some of our best bits now to bring you out the show. We're going to be back on Monday morning. Myself and Ger will be back in studio. Hopefully we'll have some sort of sport to talk about.
An 8-minute interview with Shane Duffy.
Yeah. Play the full thing. It's just a shot of you roaming in the press area after the game.
Followed by a 12-minute interview with Lewis Dunk.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I say, stay safe out there. Have a great weekend. You can tweet us at Off the Ball with any thoughts you have about the non-sporting weekend that's coming up. We'll see you on Monday. But as I say, we're going to play you out with some of our best bits from the last couple of weeks.
Here, I got to ask you, so beside the Hurling Warriors poster, what's the other thing over your right shoulder?
Yeah, so I put that up. Can you see that clearly?
Just a bit, yeah. There's a headline there. It all began with a Brown and Nolan medal.
Yeah. I'll try and bring over the phone to it, see does it work.
Oh, yeah. So what is it?
Can you see that now?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's my... I put it up there, you know, you might notice it or might not, but you did, so it's great. That's my grandfather, Paddy Grace, the man with the cap and the hurls and the suit. So he played for Kilkenny for many years, and he was the secretary for the county board for many years, but just a hurling man. Like, he talked about me that I love hurling. This man loved hurling 100 times more than I did. He was the man in Nolan Park that he wanted all the kids to be let out in the field because he said they're the future. And he would never let anyone hunt the kids off the field. And who's he shaking hands with? The greatest of them all, Christy Ring. So that's a brilliant, brilliant photo. And what I loved about that is we're talking about elitism at the moment. And I know that the new GA president was talking about the development squads, and we have to move away from elitism. We're the GA, we're about the community. Look, there you have two great men, and look at the young fellas looking up at him. This is an All-Ireland final, the 1954 All-Ireland final. Cork were after beating Kilkenny, and the young lads there in shaking hands with Christy Ring. Look at the crowds that are at the match. Like, to me, that's the GA. That's what we're all about. So I said I'd put that up there. One of you might know us, and then we could talk about it. But it's we have to stay away from elitism. The GA is about the community where everyone is involved. So it's inter-county, it's club, it's everyone. It's a kind of a 50-50 kind of a thing. So I just had to put that up there for that.
Yeah, and like unbelievable sportsmanship too from your grandfather, who's obviously lost and is devastated by the loss, but still goes over to shake the hand of Christy Ring.
Yeah, but sure, that's the way hurling is, and that's the way it always has been. Like, you know, you're devastated, you're down in the dumps, but you go over and you say, listen, that's the way you're trying to teach the kids, and that's the way you were taught by your own parents and coaches. You shake their hands and say, listen, I did everything I could. I might have hated you for that 60 minutes, that 70 minutes on the field and for the few minutes beforehand, but it's over now. We're both hurling men. We all come from clubs. We all come from hurling families, and we're all the one. So it's, you know, it's nearly kind of it's a relief even to shake a hand after getting bet, because at least you can just say, listen, we did our best and we weren't good enough. Let's move on, you know, and you can kind of, you can let it go. But no, it's a beautiful thing in the GA, and you know, that's a great photo.
Well, certainly one reign where you were hugely integral was when I played under Trap. You must have felt so important to the way we played under him. Look, there's been a lot of talk about the style of play. Certain players will feel aggrieved that they didn't get more caps because he fairly set in stone wasn't at the starting lineup. And, you know, we come now under Martin and we're trying to guess systems and personnel. It's very, very difficult. With Trap, it must have been an absolute dream, Dave, to just, we knew if whoever was fit, that was the team, and you were crucial to the way
it was a dream for us, because we knew Tuesday evening what the team was.
Well, it was good as a player if you were in the team. You know, I really enjoyed it. But you'd make maybe one or two changes.
Sticking across in there.
He was really nice to me, you know. He'd always have a smile and a twinkle in his eye when I'd turn up. He'd always be, Kevin, relax. You're tired. You've run a lot. Relax. You know, he'd be like whispering to me the whole time. You know, you look tired, or take a break. Don't train today, or you know, he'd always.
I was telling the opposite to me. Run.
He'd always have a word with me, because I did run a lot under. He probably knew I needed to calm it down during the week in training, but he always had I always felt he, you know, had a word for me, or a smile for me, and you know, he played me an awful lot. In the end, he didn't play me so much, but you know, I probably didn't deserve to be either. So, but for a long time, you know, our style wouldn't have been the prettiest, but we knew what we were doing. We had a plan. We stuck to it. We practiced it all week. You know, it mightn't have been the prettiest, but we knew what we were doing. You know, we were going along a lot of the time, or from kickouts, but we were all on the same page, I think. You know,
so were they enjoyable games to play in? Obviously, any game you win is enjoyable, but in general terms, when pretty much you're not, on one level he's playing to your strengths because he knows you can do that kind of a job, but we rarely got to see your footballing skills to the same extent that we would see when you were leading the line for Reading, when you were wearing a green shirt. I just saw you as the guy that was leaving the field after 87 minutes with your like legs on stumps. Was that enjoyable?
I would be rolled off. Those games were on a Wednesday as well, and we'd have a club game on a Saturday, and it was so hard to come to get back around so quickly. But at the time, you know, I didn't think it was enjoyable. I was playing for Ireland. Giovanni Trapattoni was my manager, like an absolute legend. So I was just happy, you know, happy to play. And we were getting good results, and you could see we were, you know, you could see that we were, you know, I'd played under, obviously, the previous campaign under Steve Staunton, and it didn't work out, and we were tailed off early, and we were never in line. We tried to play better football, and we were never anywhere. So with Giovanni, we were, you know, first or second in the group, and there was a buzz around the place.
You do anything he'd ask of you, basically.
He had that ability to get me to, you know.
For the majority of us, I would say or people might say, I looked at him in rose-tinted glass because he was the one that gave me the opportunity. You'd have played under a few Ireland managers, but he had Damien Duff doing it. You know, he not so much Robbie, because Robbie was the one who probably got away with a little bit more in terms of he was always at the end of things and got that goal or whatever. But the rest of us literally would run through brick walls
because you were playing though. Like for guys who are being expected to turn up for the squads, but no, come Tuesday afternoon or Saturday afternoon game, that they weren't in the team.
I've got the utmost respect.
What's their opinion of Trap?
Yeah, probably wouldn't be as good. And I have got sympathy for those type of players that would turn up time and time again. Like some of the ones that would reel out my head would be Paul McShane and Kevin Foley, Andy Keogh, those type of players who would turn up every single time to be part of it, knowing that they might get some minutes.
But they don't even get a chance to impress in training. Like, that would be my problem with it. You don't arrive thinking, as of arriving in Portmarnock or Castleknock, wherever it might have been, I'm on the fringe of it. But if I really perform well Monday, Tuesday, give the manager something to think about maybe Wednesday, you never know, it might at least be first sub. But Tuesday evening, you're gone.
I found that under a lot of, all managers, international football is, you know, there's 3 or 4 days training. It doesn't matter what you do in those, unless you're carrying an injury or you might be trying to get...
regardless of when the team is named.
Very... it's very based on your club form and previous games for Ireland. You know, that he's not looking at you on a Monday. Most of the time on a Monday, Tuesday, a lot of lads are sitting out. They've got niggles from their club, so they're not. You're not really. You're just getting there to be fit and to get in a little bit of shape for. So you can't. I don't know. Maybe you're different. You found it different. I don't think you're really there to show what you can do in those 3 or 4 days.
How long does it take to actually catch up on the lads who have been through the school system?
It's hard for me to say because I've been out of school. This is my 8th year out of school, so how do you quantify it really?
When did you start feeling comfortable, I guess?
It was hard for me because I left school and I probably had a massive chip on my shoulder. I hadn't really touched weights properly, didn't really understand a massive amount of my body, and it takes 4 or 5 years, 4 years maybe. For me, I felt to get up to scratch and strength levels and the durability levels and stuff.
Was the chip on your shoulder because you hadn't been through the school's pathway that you kind of felt like these guys, it looks like it's all set up for them and you had to fight your way? Is that what the chip was?
Yeah, you probably feel like you're underdog, and you probably think certain things about lads from Dublin when you grow up in the country that when you look back now you probably think are a bit naive, but at the time you firmly believed it, and it's what drove you on, and you thought maybe these lads got afforded more opportunities to you, and they thought they were better than you because you come from the country and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's the case now at all, but it's the way I felt back then.
Yeah.
Do you think that there was a benefit by the fact that you were essentially just let out there to go and play? You mentioned that you didn't get into a weights programme, but that says to me that you weren't in a regimented system where you were being told to stand in line and do this. You were just allowed to go out there and play, and essentially that's what's got you to the top, essentially, is the fact that you're a ball player who can play in your position very well.
I think you can probably argue pro or against.
Yeah.
I probably spent less time with a ball in my hand, or tackle technique and ruck technique and line-outs and scrums, and if I look back and even under 20 clips of me scrummaging now, you'd be shocked, and just the level of coaching you probably get. It's through no fault of the clubs, the school system itself, is
full-time strength and conditioning coaches, 6 rugby pitches, and a century of tradition.
Yeah, exactly. And what it probably did afford to me was, I didn't have to make the decision early that I want to be a rugby player. You played a lot of GAA, you maybe pick up a bit of spatial awareness, hand-eye coordination, and I suppose when I left school and then I got into the sort of sub-academy, into more of a serious training program, and into the academy, you see massive leaps in your physical, your body, your skill set, and all these things are new to you, so you kind of grasp on and you can see yourself getting better and better and better, and it's kind of exciting. It drives you on then a little bit to know that you're going to work every day and you're getting better.
Well known that I have asthma and I know exactly what the rules are, says Chris Froome in his statement on the Sky cycling website. I use an inhaler to manage my symptoms, always within the permissible limits. Is it always within the permissible limits? Well, apparently not at the Vuelta. I know for sure that I will be tested every day I wear the race leader's jersey. Okay, never failed a test in my life is the subtext to that. We've heard that one before. My asthma got worse at the Vuelta, so I followed the team doctor's advice to increase my salbutamol dosage. I didn't do this on my own. There's it takes a village to raise an idiot. As always, I took the greatest care to ensure that I did not use more than the permissible dose. I take my leadership position in my sport very seriously. The UCI is absolutely right to examine test results, and together with the team, I will provide whatever information it requires. And then team principal Sir Dave Brailsford. Sir Dave. There are complex medical and physiological issues which affect the metabolism and excretion of salbutamol. Here's the science bit. We're committed to establishing the facts and understanding exactly what happened on this occasion. We haven't got a clue what's going on here. I have the utmost confidence that Chris followed the medical guidance in managing his asthma symptoms, staying within the permissible dose for salbutamol. Of course, we will do whatever we can to help address these questions. Just need some time to think up a proper answer to this before we can kind of go, oh, it was really hot. He was sweating a lot. He's so skinny now that the maximum permissible... this is my prediction of what they're going to say. Very hot, dehydration, bad asthma... It took, the level of was required by the doctors, but his body didn't metabolize it the same way this time because he's got such a unique body. In the meantime, cycling obviously has, it's really got its stuff together and this stuff. And Chris Froome, the most famous and most successful cyclist in the world, ends up with a positive test, and yet next week he's going to be back in the saddle. They deny it's a positive test, but certainly that's how it's been reported.
Yes, and what I find most bizarre about this is that there has been no commitment to a end of the process. I can't understand why they couldn't say at the moment that the test was announced or leaked. This is another example of the media dragging the situation into the public eye. Why couldn't you say at that moment that on the 16th of February or March, whatever it is, the hearing will be held and we will make a decision? It's just in the vacuum that's created by that lack of clarity, we now have all this uncertainty. So Froome will go off and race a couple of races. Maybe he'll even make it to the start line of the Giro. Maybe he'll even defend his tour title. And then possibly in August this year, we'll finally resolve a situation that's been hanging over for 10 months. It's actually ludicrous because maybe he's able to prove something that shows that he didn't cheat to get twice the allowed level of salbutamol, in which case there'll be no ban and everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. But if they give him a 9-month ban, then that would have started in September last year, and everything that he did between September and June this year will have to be wiped off. And you know it could happen as you're watching it. So how can you believe that result if Froome's on top of both podiums in those Grand Tours, and there's a better than likely chance he's going to have that result taken away? It's untenable.
Would it always be retrospective? Is there no way that they go from the day that we find the adverse finding, or we find that you need to serve a 9-month ban, that it's from that day forward, and so actually all he misses is the winter and the first 3 months of next year, and everybody is actually technically happy with that because the Tour result will stand, the Giro result will stand, and he'll be fit to come back to try and win 5 next year?
That could be the way they fudge it. You're right. I've not seen them do that before. Normally, it's from the moment of that positive test, and they retrospectively ban you then that way. But that might be the way to do it. But even there, now if he's banned, then it means what? It means that there was evidence that he was either negligent or, worst case, I guess, for him, would be deliberately doping in the Vuelta last year. So now you've got a convicted doper going on to win the next 2 big tours that he rides in potentially. And how's that good for the credibility of the sport? Because now he's a known doper. So no matter how it goes, unless he's able to provide the evidence to show that he was completely innocent, there is no scenario here where cycling ends up looking good, even if they fudge it that way.
I haven't paid enough attention to his social media feeds over the years, but it seemed that was it a Strava detail that came out recently of like a 7.5-hour ride around South Africa? That was one of the first times that we had seen him go, oh look, I'm out in a training spin, everybody, I'm doing this level of training at this point. There was some speculation that was part of them trying to recreate conditions where they might be able to somehow synthesize the twice the level of salbutamol in the system. Is there any credence given to that theory that's doing the rounds at the minute?
Who knows? It seems plausible that that's what he's done, because he has to do that. He's got to figure out a way to reproduce what happens in the 3rd week of a Grand Tour. So he's posted, as you say, a few of those rides. He could be trying to do that. From the sounds of what's come out, he has to show how a combination of extreme exertion plus dehydration plus fatigue could cause these elevated levels, given supposedly a kidney condition. So somehow he's got to trigger a repeat of a kidney condition and then recreate all the surrounding contextual circumstances. And yeah, I mean, maybe Froome does that every January, goes on these 45-kilometer-an-hour, 7-hour epic rides. But if not, then he's trying to do that now. And again, coming back to what I said earlier, I find it completely bizarre that you have what seems to be an indefinite period of time to try and figure out how you're going to prove your innocence. Like, basically, from the moment he was told that there was this positive test, he's been able to go away and just basically take one shot after another and trying to recreate it until eventually he does so, and then he can go to the court. To me, you should have to offer maybe not a detailed explanation, but some kind of theory for what happened, and then in a controlled circumstance recreate that. At the moment, it's just machine gun fire until he eventually lands on one that seems plausible. It's just, to me, it's a bizarre process.
Ross, let's create an alternate reality here where you're a physiologist for Team Sky and it is your job to protect Chris Froome to the very end of his career. What are you going to say to this fictitious hearing that may or may not happen to defend Chris Froome? How can you defend twice the level of salbutamol in one system?
Well, I mean, so the hearing has to happen. I mean, if they delay it indefinitely, there's a big problem. So I would go to that hearing and I would do pretty much what they're trying to do. They've got to show that he's a 1 in a million. And that would have to require that he's got some kidney condition that appeared on that specific day. So he would have to go there and provide supporting evidence. He would have, first of all, you'd have to argue that he took the maximum allowed dose. So in other words, as you may know, the guidelines allow you to take a certain amount over 12 hours. It's 800 micrograms and 1600 over 24. He's got to build an argument that says, I took it at exactly this time and then here and here and here to maximize that. And then he would have to go and test himself under the most extreme dehydration and so on possible until he can try and recreate something as close to that value that he got as possible. And then he would have to try and say to them, now you see, because he's not going to get it in a lab. It's to me impossible. He's never going to get to 2,000. Maybe he can get to 1,100, 1,200. There's about 4 scientific studies that have done something similar, and that's the limit to what they can get. And then he's got to find an explanation for the next, call it 800, and that will be the kidney malfunction. So he can go so far using the recreation, I think, and then he's got to bridge that gap using a theoretical argument. And that theoretical argument will be, as I say, kidneys, and he will have to try and discredit the previous research. So I think that what they will do is they will bring in renal specialists and other pharmacology experts who basically attack and undermine the research on which that threshold is set. And they will try and argue that that threshold should be 2,000, not 1,000 as it currently stands.
But I do believe we have someone else sitting in the green chair right now. You're here, Martin Williams, to tell us about the dark arts of the number 7.
Oh, I thought I was telling stories on Woody and Drickle.
Exactly. You've been on the receiving end of some of the dark arts from those two.
I have. When I was contacted earlier in the week by the producer to ask any stories on Drickle and Woody, it's always one of them. I was very careful. I'm coming to Dublin. I don't want to dish the dirt on Irish royalty. I might not get out here alive. But I just immediately, 2 things came to mind. Very, very similar situations, actually. My first is from a game against Ireland, 1999, up in Wembley, of all places, because they were building the Millennium Stadium. Remember being 5 minutes into the game, first ruck. I'm lying at the bottom of the ruck. Keith Wood, the legendary Keith Wood, who I looked up to all my career, stood over the top of me, and I'm thinking, he's looking down at me in the eye, thinking he's going to help me up here. No. Size 12 boot, right on the shin, 12 stitches. So that was my welcome to Mr. Wood. Whoa! And a very similar scenario a few years later, must have been 7 or 8 years later, from a Mr. O'Driscoll, who he sat up there as if butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. Believe me, I remember it was a Leinster-Cardiff Blues game where Brian had travelled over to Cardiff, one of his rare occasions in a Pro 14 game, that he came over to join us. And very similar situation again. I'm at the ruck. I've actually got my hand on the ball. And instead of Brian politely asking me to remove my hand from the ball, he stamps on my hand, and he's looking at me in the eye as well. So, and the result of that is now I can't wear my wedding ring on this finger. I've got to wear it on my right hand. So
I know your pain, Nugget. I know your pain.
I just want a public apology from both of them, that's all, because I've never done anything to those two.
You'll be waiting the rest of your bloody life. I'll tell you that.
Only go as far as you want to, because I'm sensing some sort of reluctance, and that's totally legit. But like everybody who spoke after that said, Stephen is not the sort of, this is not his character, this is not the sort of guy he is. And it's also totally legit that you can confront a management team and say, listen, I think I should be in that team, I think I should be given a chance.
Yeah, I think at that it was after the Germany game. Like after the Euros, I was so good not to play, but it was more when we came back then. I was still playing for Fulham every week in the Premiership, and at the time not everybody was playing, like I said, not everybody was playing at that level. So, and like even now not everybody plays at that level. So if you're playing the Premiership Ireland, you should be in and around it. Like So yeah, I think we played Germany. I think we got an absolute hammering at home. 6-1, yeah.
There was a great quote before that game from one of the Ireland players who there was big expectations. We were only not long in the Aviva, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
The quote was, "The new stadium hasn't had a christening in terms of a big scalp and a big performance from us. I think it's time we delivered."
Yeah.
Said Keith Andrews.
That was the quote you were going to deliver.
But we were legitimately going in and saying, "Listen, I'm worthy of a spot in that back."
Yeah, I think we'd lost the game 6-1, and I think I had the conversation just that, like, listen, I feel like I deserve an opportunity to play now. We've lost really badly at the hands. Don't get me wrong, fantastic footballing team, Germany, great nation, probably one of the best I've ever played against. But at home against Germany, we shouldn't be beat like that. No. We shouldn't be, regardless of, you know, at the time probably one of the best teams in the world, and they went on to win the World Cup a few years later, so they were. But I still don't think at home we should acquit ourselves in that manner.
And did they again, just be as giving as you want to be, or not at all? But like, did they respond immediately negatively to that? Like, you sort of questioning the management team?
Yeah, pretty much. And it was, like I said again, it wasn't really the manager. And you know, it's like trying to speak to Giovanni was difficult because
very difficult.
His English was like dreadful not to be around the bush. It really was.
Didn't particularly like to be questioned.
Yeah, and I think I think his English possibly maybe got worse when you spoke to him.
It's quite convenient for him,
quite convenient. Yeah, you know, it's like, so sometimes, you don't understand, but
he did.
But it did, yeah. So it was frustrating. But it wasn't Giovanni at all. It was just what was
said. To question your commitment.
Yeah,
that was the disappointing thing, because genuinely I've made that point, and genuinely from a player that played in those games in Euros, when I came back and the dust settled on everything, couldn't believe that the players that had been through it all weren't rewarded by getting a game at the Euros, and then wind on a few months, and obviously that little episode mustn't have sat well.
It just didn't sit well, and that was it. And like I said, I'm not I never ever traumatised or Pam or a type person that would I'm not even that argumentative to the best of times, you know. I'm very relaxed, and Keith would probably sound like I'm very pretty chilled out person, but it was just, wasn't happy with what was said, and was disappointed, and that was it, I suppose. And then what happened, but like I said, there was no means was it bust up on the training ground or an argument. I think people, everything gets blown out of proportion, but no, it wasn't that in any stretch of imagination. But it was just a frustrating time, and again, it was to be honest, at the time what was said then and there was frustrating, and then I got on with it, and I came back in the squad, and I was
there's another 7 or 8 caps under
so I came back into it, and I was fine. I was happy. I just got at it, but then it was just little things that were like, things were said in the press about it, and it was just like, you know, questioning, and I was just like, you know, I had to come out and make a couple of statements, I think, and all, and that stuff like that was just, you know, beyond frustrating, because again, to question my commitment to playing for Ireland when it's something that I've literally adored doing, and that's the God honest truth. Like, there's been, you know, the best things in my life were probably meeting my wife Helga to begin with. We were 17, amazing, having the children, getting married, having our children, and then playing for Ireland. That would be that's it. You know what I mean? Family always comes first, but playing for Ireland, as it comes to achievements for myself and football wise, that is by all means the best thing that I could have done. You know, I've been to European Cup finals with Fulham and stuff like that, but this was being beyond the best, and so to question something like that and to question my commitment was extremely frustrating. And I had to kind of dispel those, and I think I had to dispel them, but I didn't really, because anybody that knew me, even in the media, everybody knows the type of person I am, the character I am, and that I wouldn't shy away from playing for Ireland. I would never not turn up for Ireland, you know. So I think at one point I'd gone something like 4 years without missing international, and probably only got, like, realistically, if we were to go on the amount of times I've been in the squad, I could probably have 110 caps, 115 caps, probably more, I'd say.
Could have been Kilbane, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could have been, But,
and it can be devastating. And a lot of times you see a knockout, it's when a guy's throwing a punch and the other guy's staying in the pocket and making him pay. So it's definitely a skill, but it's very dangerous and high risk. Were you a pocket fighter? Not for the early part of my career. At times I was, but at times towards the end I was, yeah.
And when you're practicing that, are you getting clipped a lot in training? And
it's something that you would practice more on the pads, throwing a punch and taking your head out at the same time or after, and rolling after punches. It's a technical skill. Like if we turn to my top 10, the two guys in the top 10 the top two really are pocket fighters. They stay there in the pocket. This is my top 10, and as I said earlier, it's I've comprised it
irregardless of weight and who they've beaten. But all the guys on the list are world champions and great fighters in their own right. But if they're all at one weight, how would they match out and who would win?
That's controversial because that's not really how the pound for pound works in most, is it?
For me, pound for pound. So for pound, who wins? You know, that's where I judge it. So it's totally subjective. I'm open to be ridiculed.
I just want to warn you that Owen once did the FIFA team and left out Leo Messi, and his mentions exploded. So you might be in for a couple of days of Twitter hell.
I don't think it's going to be that controversial.
I didn't leave out Leo Messi. It was a draft. Anyway, I'm not still hung up about it. So anyway.
We should start at 10. Ryan Burnett squeaks in there. Definitely going to get a bit of...
No, Burnett deserves his spot there. Last year he beat 2 champions in his division. He became champion and defended his belt against another champion and beat both guys convincingly in 2 real grueling fights. And he's a very hungry young fighter, and I know how good he is. So for me, he deserves his spot in the top 10 pound for pound.
That's... there you go.
That's how far we go back. So that's how well I know him.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great photo.
At the Belfast Cronk. Is that still there?
It's still there.
Yeah, right.
It's still going. They still have some champions. They have a very good fighter called Tennyson, who's a lightweight professional champion. He's a pretty good fighter.
It's interesting when you look into his weight division and how BoxRec rank him in that division, that they put him as 4th in the world at this point. How, clearly you believe that he's just as good as anybody up there. Lewis Neri, I think, is the #1 fighter in that division according to BoxRec. Can he get to that level? Can he beat him?
I think he can. He's still very young. It's just a matter of time. He's kind of almost come too soon, not for his own good, but I think he's got this defense now. He's fighting a Puerto Rican undefeated fighter who's 17-0. And that's a good step for him. It's a young fighter as well, so it'll be a good gauge for him. And once he gains experience, a little bit more experience at this level, it's hard to say that because he's a double world champion, but I think he's ready to beat anyone. I've said it before, he's the hardest working boxer I've ever trained besides throughout my career. And he's obsessional about his preparation and his mental preparation. And for me, he deserves, interestingly, #9, Nayo Inoue, pronounce that, Joseph. He's also in the bantamweight division. And a lot of people would have him maybe higher in the list. He's a very good fighter and usually wins by KO. I think he's won most of his fights by knockout. So he's really he's a sensational fighter out of Japan.
Mm-hmm. And he's only recently, I think, moved into the US market, or I think it's only once he's fought in the US. I think his last fight was actually in Japan. So is there kind of an element that he's an unbelievable hero back home and has yet to break the US market? That's certainly how it seems to me.
But he's beaten he's beaten all of his challenges convincingly, and at world level. One thing that's interesting about my pound for pound, and most of people's pound for pound list, I did have a look at some of the others, The Ring and ESPN's, and you can see that it's a global sport now. Traditionally it would be dominated by America, and especially in the 90s, the 80s, and probably forever. But now you might have 1 or 2 from outside.
Yeah.
But now it's a global sport. You have Mexico, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Japan, Ireland. So we're in there, and boxing truly is it's a global sport. So it doesn't really matter where you're from. If you're good enough, you will get opportunities.
And there used to be a sense that one of the biggest achievements of Wayne McCullough's career was to go to Japan and win a fight there against the reigning Japanese champion, because this being boxing, there was always an assumption that no matter what you do, the Japanese guy is going to get the decision in Japan. But that seems to, not saying it's been fixed.
I wouldn't go that far either.
But at least now there's a sense that there's
Well, the thing is, with the level of exposure now for these fights is huge, and they're seen globally. It's not just you'd see a fight that would be only televised locally, and you'd only hear about it in early hours in the morning. You'd read about it the next day. So
you can actually watch the footage.
You can watch it, and usually, if there is a controversial decision, there's usually a rematch made immediately.
Yeah. Okay, so who else?
Well, just coming back to that, it's an interesting one when you look and just reading through, as you say, the latter stages of your power rankings here, and Inoue is how I'm going to pronounce his name, and Burnett, and how they interweave potentially via Jamie McDonnell, and how that fight could happen for both of them. Is Inoue likely to fight him soon? I saw reports earlier on this month.
There was some talk about Jamie McDonnell fighting Inoue, or Inoue, as you can pronounce it. But I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but that would be a huge fight for him and a huge step. And there was talk about him going to Japan to take the fight. I don't want to speak out of school, but I know the fight was offered to Burnett and to McDonald to fight each other, but it just never happened.
Okay.
For whatever reason, they would be good friends. They would have sparred together a lot. Actually, when McDonald defended his title in Texas a few years ago, Burnett was chief sparring partner and travelled with McDonald to the fight and watched him go through the whole routine and the whole practice. So they would be very close friends. So it might be a bit of a strange one for him to fight.
Yeah, that'll be a good storyline going into that fight should it happen, though.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. It seems like they're on different trajectories throughout their careers.
So Mikey Garcia at number 8.
Well, these ones are time costs, and you could put them in any 8, 7, 6. Thurman, Spence, and Garcia. They're all very good boxers, and it's a matter of who you pick, who you favour. You know, your preference. Garcia, I remember I fought in Las Vegas. It would have been my third or fourth fight, and we were in the dressing room, and there was this kid, and he was telling us he was a police officer. Right. This was just, you know, boxing is something that he likes to do. His uncle was a famous boxer, Robert Garcia, was an IBF champion. And look up, 2 or 3 years later, he's still winning, and now he's in the top 10 pound for pound list, and he's a serious fighter, Garcia. And but like sitting in the dressing room back then, you would have no idea he would go on to do what he's done, you know.
So he's a super lightweight, 37-0. That's an unbelievable record he has.
Yeah, and a real solid fighter. Like the three of those guys, Spence, Thurman, and Garcia, they all do the fundamentals really well. They're not sensational in terms of they do spectacular knockouts. Well, they do have some spectacular knockouts, Thurman and Garcia particularly, but they're very sound fundamentally, and to just do everything correct at the right time. Crawford is a real throwback fighter. He's like a fighter you'd see in the 80s. I think he would be competing with the likes of Ray Leonard and Duran. But, you know, back in those days, that's how good he is. So he's a real throwback and one to watch.
He's going up against Jeff Horn in April. Horn obviously had that win against Pacquiao last year, so maybe one could say Pacquiao is well past his best at this point, and that Horn win isn't actually that big. But at the same time, a win over Jeff Horn is a win over Jeff Horn.
And he beat Gary Corcoran in his last fight. You know, he's a Galway. He's a guy who he's London-based, but he has Galway family. He's got good ties to Galway, Gary Corcoran, and he beat him convincingly, and he showed a lot more, not just to be a brawler in that fight. Horn showed that he can box. So.
Why have you got him at 5? And like he's a little bit ahead of the lads at 6, 7, and 8.
I think I just like his style. Like I said, it's a preference. Thurman is a great puncher, great boxer, a lot of science to his work. People might just dismiss him as a puncher, but he showed, and he beat Danny Garcia in his last fight. He showed they can really box at the highest level and execute a game plan.
It kind of feels wrong to get excited for 2019 already, considering we've just started the year with Thurman and Spence potentially next year, is what they're saying. Like that could be a kind of a tiebreaker almost in the second half of your top 10 there, really.
People want to see it now, but I think Thurman has an injury, and he might need a comeback fight after a long layoff.
Yeah, an elbow, I think, was it?
Yeah, then fight Spence. But either of those guys, you could place them even higher, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so let's get to the top 4 here. It's the Thai fighter at number 4. Let's see the way
you can pronounce that one. Cicerat, I say.
Yeah. So what is it about this guy? He's super flyweight. So
he's a super flyweight. He's beat Roman Gonzalez twice, who would have been in maybe 1 or 2 in the pound-for-pound rankings last year.
Yeah.
A fight which I fought on the undercard of, and a very lovely man, very humble guy. Came from poverty in Thailand. I think he was eating out of the trash can. That's the story that goes around about him, and he's worked his way up through the ranks, got the opportunity against Gonzalez, which he would have been an underdog, but he went in there and he the fight was very close. The first fight was very close. Could have went either way. I felt Gonzalez was hard done by a little bit, him being the champion of such high caliber and held in such regard. But then the rematch, he totally destroyed Gonzalez and really cemented his place. He won a fight at the weekend, which they have this series of, they call Superfly, which is their weight division. And they've become quite a feature now on HBO. You know, traditionally you wouldn't have had lightweight fighters in lighter weights fighting in main event fights, but now they have, because, like I said, the skill level, the entertainment, and the excitement. Yeah. So
they go at it.
Yeah, and one thing about him, he definitely hasn't forgot his past, because he's so hungry when he fights. There's just a steely determination about him, and he kind of, there doesn't seem to be any stopping him.
So he's actually not that old, I suppose, for fighters anymore, but he's 31 and has 50 fights.
It's a lot of miles on the clock.
Yeah.
A lot of those fights would have been in Thailand. So, but it seems to be the way in those lighter weight divisions that it's only later on in your career that you get the recognition, you know, and it's and especially in Thailand there would have been a lot of fighters at that weight, so he would have been able to, whereas Burnett's only got coming up to 20-something fights.
Yeah, 25 I think.
Yeah, so
18 wins, no losses.
He's coming up to 20 fights, so this side of the world in Western Europe and in America there wouldn't be a lot of competition. But in Thailand and Asia, they can build big records like that.
Yeah, I just can't get over how prolific he is. 18 times since his last defeat, which was in 2014. To fight 18 times and to be one of the best in the world in whatever 4 years is some record, isn't it?
So the top three, Canelo, Triple G and Lomachenko. Lomachenko's number one. Lomachenko's kind of the consensus number one.
Yeah, you could argue him and Golovkin either or, you know. But he's certainly, for me, in my standards, as I said, pound for pound, irregardless of weight, he's a special boxer. I think he's a once-in-a-generation type of fighter. You can go back to Roy Jones, Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson. That type of skill, he's just genetically so gifted. He has the schooling of, his father is coach. He has that Ukrainian amateur school. He's such a dedicated guy. And you look on social, just look him up on social media, you see him doing all sorts of crazy things, like playing a game of tennis with himself, where he'll hit the ball over the net, run round the far side of the net, hit the ball back to himself, sprint round the far, and get a bit of a volley and a bit of a rally going. So, he's a sensational athlete, and he's number one for me. Golovkin and Canelo could be either way. We'll find out the fight in May again, May the 5th in Las Vegas, I think, and we'll see. That will determine who is the number two. Possibly go ahead to number one.
Triple G this time 3 years ago would have been number one for everybody.
Yeah, you would have had Andre Ward still fighting. It would have been a toss-up between them. They talked about fighting at one stage, but it never happened. The best amateur. I fought him as an amateur. The best guy I'd ever been in the ring with as an amateur. Phenomenal power.
You were due to fight him again, only his father died, isn't that right?
Yeah, we had signed a contract to fight him. He had signed a contract, but his father passed away, and out of respect, obviously, I wasn't too upset because I totally understood how that would make him feel. So, unfortunately, that was a fight that I had agreed to several times, but never happened. But just as well now, huh?
Is that what you feel now? It's like
no, I would have loved it. It would have been an honour to fight such a great champion, and I think he'll go down the Hall of Fame. He's going to be, he'll be remembered for a long time after he retires. So it would have been great to share the ring with him, but it just never happened.
Yeah, you don't have the heavyweight champion of the world here on your list, and pound for pound, he's a big guy. If you blow everybody else up to that same
size. I was thinking if he came down to maybe flyweight, if he came down to bantamweight, would Anthony Joshua compete? Would Deontay Wilder compete? No. They compete, but they wouldn't be winning. I don't think that's just how I see it.
Yeah, the heavyweights don't tend to have the boxing skills. They're but
they have the equaliser.
Yeah,
and
if you had to pick one of them, who would be your one heavyweight in that power rankings?
I would have to say Joshua. He beat Klitschko, and has been kind of flawless on his way to this path of destruction. His last fight against Takam.
Oh yeah.
He didn't set the world alight, but they changed their opponent a week to go to the fight. Takam's a very durable guy and was very negative and didn't expose himself in any way and opened himself up to be hurt.
No.
So he was really in survival mode from the route one. So,
but you look at the alternative to that, and Wilder against Severn. Was it the same weekends he was on? Certainly similar time, and the way he destroyed him.
Yeah, but that's Severn that showed up that night. Was not the Severn who Wilder had beaten a few years previous. That was a real competitive fight and a real heavyweight fight, the first fight between Severn and Wilder. But the last fight, Wilder made a point of just blasting him out. It was a sensational knockout.
Incredible.
That's what I said. Both of those guys, Wilder especially, what he lacks technically, he makes up for in raw power, you know. And
just thinking about it, right? If you're managing either of the two lads, do you not get everybody in a room and say, let's have like a minimum of 2 fights and hope that we get a trilogy and make everybody super rich?
Yeah, well, that would be a great plan. I think they'd be super rich out of one fight, but it just depends how the first time. If someone gets flattened in the first round, is anyone going to want to see it again?
I might want to see a rematch. I mean, okay, it's going to be 90-10 in terms of the earning power,
but really, I couldn't pick a winner between the two of them.
And so, like, everybody's got to buy that fight. Get it done quickly, no?
Get it done. I think
you keep kicking the money down the road. And
one
it
of the
never
fights
come.
this weekend, he's fighting Luis Ortiz, the Cuban guy, who's failed a drug test, who's is a doper, and I think Wilder's going to make a point of beating him because of that.
Yeah,
beating him pretty comprehensively. Yeah, in light of what's happened this weekend, I don't want to say destructively or it's like at times like this in boxing, you have to be careful of the words you use, and
because we all lapse into that language, and actually it turns out it is a life or death thing when everybody gets in the ring.
Yeah, a stark reminder of what happened this weekend. Like Scott Westgard, a young, 31-year-old fighter, wouldn't have been heralded. He wouldn't have been on the huge circuit of high-profile fights. Just a guy who was doing what he loved, it seemed, and paid the ultimate price. It's hard to put words. You see people tweeting "rest in peace" and thoughts with the family, but that doesn't do it right. That doesn't do it justice. It's guy's lost his life, and no sport should cost that much. Everyone knows like you enter the ring, you know the risks. That's the ultimate risk. But it's just a terrible, terrible situation.
Yeah, and we as supporters who have never been in the ring completely take that for granted. Like, you go and you hoop and holler and you urge people on, but we don't really know the risks, and we don't ever live with them.
I'm in the ring, I'm in the crowd, and I'm baying for blood myself. I don't want to see a fight end in points. For me, I always want to see a fight end in knockout. That's why I go to watch fights. But you have to, at times like this, you have to be reminded. And he won the fight. It wasn't like a fight. He got knocked down in the last round, apparently. He fought a fight against Tadhg Spellman. He dropped Spellman halfway through the fight. They were fighting, and towards the end of the last round, 10-round fight, he was hurt, put down, kind of bumbled through the ropes, and recovered and the bell went. Some say he was saved by the bell. I haven't seen the fight. I refuse to. I don't want to watch that fight. He came out, was conducting an interview. Some people said he didn't seem right at the interview, went back to the dressing room, and apparently the paramedics who were there on hand were very quick to react. He was rushed to hospital. He had a surgery. I think he had a blood clot scraped off the surface of his brain. And then he was fighting for 2 days, 2 nights, and that was Saturday night, the fight, and he passed away in the early hours of Monday morning. So terrible. I don't know, what do you say? How do you say it? It's like no sport, playing or competing in any sport shouldn't cost you your life. It shouldn't. But these are things you accept when you step into the ring. These are the risks that are involved.
How conscious of that are you, though, when you're actually fighting? You would have...
You never think about it.
And even so, say you were still fighting now, this news story, would you have blanked it? Would you have not read the stuff? Would you have not found out those details?
If I was fighting, like I was a few years ago, really in the guts of my career, I wouldn't have looked at it. I wouldn't have read too much details.
You would have been tweeting RIP.
I wouldn't have been tweeting anything. I wouldn't tweet about anyone's death anyway, really.
Yeah.
I don't know, he's the third British boxer to die after a fight since 2013, so, and all of those guys, they were all good young fighters. 2 of them were undefeated.
So it's not like they're getting pummeled in the ring.
They weren't had long, hard careers or journeymen, It's usually the journeymen who know how to survive. They're the ones who know how to get around the ring and navigate a fight. But I don't know. It's just a stark reminder for all the boxers out there and how dangerous the sport is. And it's on a personal level, it makes me happy. Another reason to be happy about my retirement.
Is it something that you become more aware of as you progress through your career?
No, but especially the last 2 years, I've been kind of in and out of the sport, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and not just forget about the deaths. There's been a lot of people have been in comas in the last few years. You know, several fighters have suffered tough, and are still dealing with it right now. You know, recently Eric Scudlin just came out of a coma. He'd lost a fight to Callum Smith, so that was only like late last year. So it's happening all the time, and I don't know what can be done. I don't know. I think, I don't know what can be done. Do you take it? Can you make it more safer? I think in terms of the oxygen's there, the paramedics are there straight away. You know, it's that side of things. Kind of, they're doing all they can. But do you change the rules of boxing? Do you take away from the sport? You know, by changing the rules. It's the only thing. Like, it's no defense, but he died doing what he loved. You know, and in the interview after the fight, he was saying that he just loves the sport. And he said, I'm never going to be a champion. I'm never going to make a lot of money, but I do this because I love it. I love entertaining. I love getting in the ring. I love competing. It's some small solace, I guess, to say that you die doing what you love, you know. But I think if you asked 100 boxers, maybe 98, 99 of them would say, I'd prefer to die happy and old, you know, not doing it in the ring. Yeah.
Look, it's the only sport really where the aim of the fight is to knock the opponent out.
There's no other. You have MMA, that's it. People die in, you know, skiing or car racing, but that's not their goal is to finish first in a race. It's not to hurt the other person.
I have to sound delighted you retired when you did.
I was
kind of happy when I heard the news. Is that like, because so few fighters get to do it and get to come out and say, I've had enough. And I was champ. It was like,
that's it. And walk away totally satisfied and totally at peace with myself in terms of my, you know, my own inner thoughts and my inner well-being,
and healthy,
and it's just a tough situation. And like, there's no words. You can say words, but nothing will give his family, you know, peace or make it easier for them now that, like, he's died.
There's always kind of talk around this, like you just addressed it there, about the sport and the dangers that the sport possesses. But I wonder, ultimately, is there kind of, to a certain extent, a happier goal here if people potentially look at training and sparring sessions? And I suppose it's not going to prevent deaths to a certain extent, but in terms of damage that is done over time, is like you look at Muhammad Ali, and in that book that was released last year, the real numbers that he was taking was due to his method of sparring, which was like next one up, next one up, next one up, keep me fighting, rather than non-contact training. I wonder, is there something in that potentially? Because as you already outlined, this is the sport, you know, it's not going to be changed in terms of competitive.
We watched Niall Kennedy's fight there with Chavez. Some would say that was a quick stoppage. He was getting pummeled. He wasn't punching back, but I would say that's the correct stoppage. You have to look at the fighters involved now and the way fighters are training. There's much more power orientated, and they can punch longer. They can sustain attacks for longer. And the human body, the human anatomy hasn't changed. You know, still a head, it's still a jaw, still a chin, still a body. It doesn't absorb punishment any differently. But the way you can dish it out has changed. So maybe it's the referees, the governing bodies have to look at refereeing fights and maybe just erring on the side of caution. And better to be safe than sorry.
No, definitely. That's certainly something that we've all learned over the last while. Andy, good stuff. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.